Good evening. My name is Ajit Sachdeva, and I'm the Director of the Division of Education at the American College of Surgeons. I also have the distinct privilege and honor to co-chair the steering committee of the American College of Surgeons Academy of Master Surgeon Educators, along with Dr. L.D. Brett. This session, this fireside chat, is being sponsored by the Academy, and each month we have either a fireside chat with a luminary who we feel can share the wealth of ideas, innovations, thoughts, wisdom with the participants. And then we have the other month after that, we have a virtual grand rounds on a topic of interest, again involving experts. This evening, we are really privileged to have Dr. Anton Sidawy, who will be officially introduced by Dr. Shabahang as our fireside chat presenter. And there's so much we are going to learn from him this evening. But I'll just mention a few things about Dr. Sidawy. I have gotten to know him very well. He is a giant in American surgery, a preeminent vascular surgeon. And at the college level, he's been a great leader. He's been a chair of the Board of Regents of the college. He was a founding member of the Academy and is on the steering committee of the Academy. And he also chairs the Regental Advisory Committee for Education, which is a new committee that was created last year. So we're really delighted to have you, Dr. Sidawy, as our evening presenter. We look forward to learning a lot from you. And this session will be moderated, as always, by Dr. Shabahang, who is also a member of our Academy, another renowned surgeon educator. He is the chief of surgery in the WellSpan system in central Pennsylvania, and he does a marvelous job as a moderator for all these sessions. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Shabahang to get the session going. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sachdev, and thank you, Dr. Sidawy. Maybe at first we'll just go through some housekeeping. Tonight we're honored to have Dr. Sidawy as our panelist. As you can see, you can submit questions. Thank you to all those who did submit questions, and you can submit questions in the chat box. All of these these webinars will be recorded. They will be on the website of the Academy of Master Surgeon Educators. Next slide, please. This is, you can visit the site again and see some of the previous recordings. And these are some announcements about upcoming grand rounds and fireside chats in February, March, and April. And also just a reminder that the application cycle for the Academy for both the associate and the member level is open, and you can see the dates there. Next slide, and we're done. Thank you. Well, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Dr. Sidawy tonight. Dr. Sidawy is professor and the Lewis Saltz Chair for the Department of Surgery at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. This is especially important to me because Dr. Sidawy was one of my attendings when I was a resident at Georgetown. We were both a lot younger. Dr. Sidawy was in the early parts of his career at that time, and I was a resident at the VA hospital. So Tony, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for agreeing to this session tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Shabahang and Dr. Sachdeva. You know, this is what's fair about age. We both were younger, but I was still older than you. So,
that's very true.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this honor. And it's a pleasure to chat with you this evening.
Absolutely. And, you know, over the next now hour or so or for 55 minutes, we're going to kind of go through the whole sequence of your career with an eye towards what our viewers tonight and in the future can learn from your experiences. So I'll just start with your journey. As many may know, and if they don't, you were born in Damascus, Syria, and moved to the United States. And just wanted to ask what how that transition occurred, what brought you to the United States, what was it like to go through that journey?
Well, thank you so much. You know, it really what happened is I wanted to be a doctor since I was in high school, and that's related to influence of my father, who really wanted to be a doctor, but he couldn't. He couldn't because his father died very early in his life, and he had to actually take care of the family. So couldn't become a doctor. So his goal in life is to get one of his kids to be a doctor, and I was the eldest, so he focused completely on me. So there was a lot of pressure there. Uh, but and actually, I really liked the fact of being not only a doctor but a surgeon. Even when I was in high school, I was very much impressed with two giants of surgery around the world. One is Christian Barner, who did the first heart transplant in South Africa, and one is Dr. Michael DeBakey. And I used to get the Time magazine even back home, and there was an article about Dr. DeBakey fixing an aneurysm. So I said, wow, here's this lethal disease if the aneurysm ruptures, and here's someone in the United States who actually can fix it, and the patient lives a normal life. So not only I wanted to become a doctor, not only I wanted to become a surgeon, and actually, when I came to the United States, I wanted to be either a cardiac surgeon or a vascular surgeon. So obviously, here I am, I'm a vascular surgeon. Now, why the United States? Your question is because all over the world, those doctors and surgeons that are trained in the United States of America were so much better and so much more down to earth and so much more skilled than doctors trained anywhere else in the world. In addition to that, I had really a large family in New York, in Brooklyn, and I thought, well, and also I spoke the language. Went to a parochial school, and where we learned, in addition to the native language Arabic, we learned actually French and English. So to me, it was so much easier to come to the United States because I spoke the language at the time. So this is how it happened where I came to the United States. And that was obviously a huge point in the direction of my professional career coming to the United States. And obviously, we're going to talk about more stuff that happened down the line. So we'll go
Of
from there.
course, and two anecdotes that from our prep session and so on that I just would kind of I found touching was your father's influence on learning languages and the concept of Gaitin being one of the first books that you kind of had obtained in Syria.
Yeah, my father spoke the three languages, spoke Arabic, the native language. He spoke also English and French. And that's because he went to the American University of Beirut for college. And there, obviously, he learned English, and also on his own, he learned French. And he felt that speaking languages is extremely important. So he really wanted his kids to speak all three languages, the ones that he speaks. So it was an interesting story there. After we came back from school at night every day, he will sit with us, and he sees what homework we have, especially in the languages. Okay.
Mhm.
And then next day in the morning, he will walk with us to school. And as we are getting to school, we have to repeat everything that we learned the night before by heart on the way to school. And actually, at the time, it was pretty frustrating being kids.
Of course.
But when I was coming to the United States, I felt how influential and instrumental was that and what he did with us as we were growing up.
That's a great story. That's a great story. So when we talked about different points in life which were of major significance, I know you've talked about your fellowship at Boston University very fondly, and that seemed to have been a major turning point, a fork in the road. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, actually, there's a funny story about that. So let me tell you that very quickly. This is at the time where there were no matching programs. So you apply to a lot of programs, you go and interview in all these programs, and then they call you, and one of them will call you and offer you a job, right? So I had many interviews lined up, and the first one was in Boston University. And actually, I went there for the interview and met the two folks there, Dr. Frank Legerfo and Jim Manzoian, and the other faculty over there, and really liked that place. They were extremely interested in education. They're down-to-earth people. I felt so comfortable there. So I decided every time I go to an interview, when I come back, I write about that interview and what's the positive and the negative. And at the end, I write the summation, whether I wanted to be there or not. And I actually wrote in the bottom, I love this program. If they take me, I will go there, right? And some 24 hours, 48 hours later, I get a pager. There was no cell phones at the time. I got on a pager, but I have an outside call. So I went, found the phone, and got the outside call. And here's Dr. Legerfo talking with me. And he says, well, Tony, how did you feel about the interview? And I said, I felt great, actually. And he said, well, we want to offer you the job. And I said, I'll take it. And he said, don't you want to think about it? Talk with your wife? I said, no, I have this little sheet of paper in the bottom I wrote. If they offer me the job, I will take it. So you're offering me the job, I will take it. But you have to find a fellowship for my wife. Obviously, my wife is in pathology. And he said, that's no problem. And actually, in the Mallory Institute of Pathology, he arranged for her a fellowship in hematopathology. So we went together, and that's where, and that fellowship basically turned me towards the academic track. Because when my wife and I came to the United States, all what we wanted is to be a good surgeon and a good pathologist, right? I mean, she always wanted to be a pathologist. But so I wanted to be a vascular surgeon. I'll do vascular and then come back and just practice vascular surgery. However, though, when I went to that fellowship, I actually loved the academic way of doing things. I love teaching. I love doing research. And that's what changed my direction, the whole direction in my career into academic surgery.
So clearly it was the right choice, and what you scribbled on that piece of paper ended up being the correct thing. When you came back to Washington, and we're going a little bit chronologically, but when you came back to DC, you were in a busy practice at the Washington Hospital Center. In what created the change to the VA system, where you spent another 20-something years?
Well, that's also another interesting story, and also another extremely important milestone in my academic and in my professional career. So I went to the Washington Hospital Center. Is the largest at the time, and still the largest hospital in Washington, D.C. It's been in the education business for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And I was hoping to be able to launch an academic career from there. It didn't work out. What I was doing, though, during those couple of years is I went across the street to the VA hospital and met at the time the chief of surgery over there, John Harmon. And I went to John Harmon and I said, look, I would like to come and operate here for free. And he said, why do you want to do that? And I said, well, I feel like I got a lot uh, in this country, in America, and I want to give back. And what's better to give back than um, taking care, come here and taking care of the veterans. So for about a 15-month, every Tuesday, I was going to the VA and they will schedule cases from me. I'll go there Monday evening, see all the patients, look at all the x-ray, and on Tuesday, I will go and operate whatever they put for me, carotid, lower extremity bypass, aneurysm, whatever it is. And actually, I didn't do it for that reason, but that became beneficial because one day, John Harmon came to me and said, look, our chief of vascular surgery decided to leave. And since you've been here with us, operating, working with the residents, and you didn't ask for anything in return, so I'm going to give you something in return. I'm going to ask you whether do you want to come here and be the chief of vascular surgery before we advertise the position. And I thought about it and I said, wow, I mean, that's an answer to actually my prayers in that I wanted to be an academic surgeon. And at the VA, actually, as you know, it's a fertile ground for academics. And at the time, John Harmon had a big lab doing a lot of research. And then he told me that also Barbara Bass was coming to be in general surgery. And I had known Barbara because she was a resident at GW. And and also Barbara coming to be academic, do research. And I thought, wow, I mean, I'll be able actually to learn quite a bit from these two people because they've done it ahead of me. So I took that job. And just to tell you, I took a pay cut to go to take that
I
job.
bet you did. I bet
But I think that was so important in my professional life, in my professional career, because that's what led me to where I am today. Without being at the VA, many things wouldn't have happened to me. And I mean, something that things that you mentioned, became president of uh, uh, three vascular societies and the chapter and the Washington Academy of Surgery and others. I became the editor of the Journal of Vascular Surgery from being there. I becoming editor of the Rutherford book. All that stuff happened because I was at the VA, because I built my academic career and started, in the beginning, I had a lab, which we did basic science work, collaborated with a gastroenterologist over there that was doing receptor mapping. So I did all that in the blood vessel, Lou Corman. And this is what led me where I am today. So the VA career is really very important to young surgeons who want to be in academics.
And this is, I wanted to make sure we emphasize the VA experience because you were there 20-something years. But can I focus on one thing? You
Sure.
were going to the VA voluntarily and volunteering your time, seeing patients on Monday nights. And we're in a world where much of the advice that's given to young surgeons is make sure you're, compensated for what you're doing. Make sure your RVUs, this. How do you reconcile that? Because that's really an important piece because you were just doing it. And just how do you reconcile that? From that, what advice do you have?
Well, I mean, look, the advice I have actually, if you have a passion in life and if you have a good reason, you just take that opportunity. Eventually, it will pay off. And I'm really was convinced that eventually it'll pay off. And I did it purely because I wanted to give back. I really, and that's why I did it. And this is why I didn't go there to make extra money or anything. And and I have to say, I was given back in spades. I mean, my whole career um, basically revolved about me being in the VA. And the way I started is by volunteering over there. So actually, it worked great for me. Uh, so my advice is follow your passion, follow your heart, do the right thing. Eventually, you're going to do just fine. I mean, surgeons do much better than the average population, uh, financially and everything else. So eventually, we all going to do fine. But the stuff that you cannot buy is your goal in life and being able to realize. And that, what I did at the VA, I was able to realize my goal in my professional career, and that's to be an academic surgeon.
Yes. And now I want to go to that angle because, as you said, you have been the president of 7 regional and national societies: Society for Vascular Surgery, Society for Clinical Vascular Surgery, editor of Rutherford the textbook, editor of Journal of Vascular Surgery. Have done a lot at the national and regional level. Can you tell me a little bit about that, the effect that it had on your life as you were doing it? Obviously, a lot of time dedicated, and we'll get to the time that you've dedicated to the college, but thoughts about that and what effects did they have, and what advice do you have for people as they think about national presence?
Uh, it's very interesting in that um, which I've presented that before and I talked about actually. Uh, I I tell young surgeons is that uh, you have to work hard locally. I mean, that's your base. Locally meaning your institution. You have to do well by your institution, okay? And also start in your local organization. I started in the chapter of the American College of Surgeons, right? And I started there like everyone else as a young surgeon. And we put together the Young Surgeons Committee. And we were talking about that a couple of days ago, actually, with Kurt Newman, who was part of that. And Kurt became the president of Children's Hospital in here in Washington, D.C. And we talk about that. So you got to start locally and work hard locally, but start getting engaged. Shortly thereafter, you start getting engaged regionally, meaning you get engaged in the regional organization. Like for me, it was the Eastern Vascular Society, okay? And then as you're doing that, keep your eye and plan nationally. You're not going to get there. You got to be very, very patient. It's going to take a long, long time, right? But you got to have to be thinking about it right off the bat. And if you do that and you put in the work, you will get there. So that's number one. Number two, how you move up in professional societies is that offer to help, offer to be on a committee, okay? And then if you are given a task, accept it enthusiastically, okay? Do it well and do it on time within the deadline. And once you deliver that, ask if you can do something else. But be careful and never overpromise. So if you cannot finish something, don't take it on. And people respect that. So I'm working now on the 11th edition of Rutherford. And I called people either to write chapters or actually to be associate editor on it. And one person told me, you know what, I would love to do it, but I'm just short on faculty and there's no way I could get it done. I have a great respect for that person. And next time I can offer something to that. If I have something to offer, I will offer that person, because that tells me that that person will only take a task if they can get it done. And that's what you need. Now, you say, why? Well, because leaders in any organization or in any function, what they want, first, they want to do well by young people, but also, and more importantly, okay, they want the business of the society or the unit to be taken care of. So if they ask you and to do a good job, next time they ask you again. And then when there is a time they're appointing people to committee, they will say, you know what? That person is so responsive and always deliver on time. They put you up for a committee. And that's how it works. And it takes time. You gotta be patient. Don't rush it. You will get there.
It's great advice. And Tony, is there any of these activities, obviously it's hard to compare things to each other, but any special meaning any of it has had to you, or is it that each had its own flavor?
Yeah, there's no question each of them has its own flavor, but um, being editor of the Journal of Vascular Surgery,
Mm.
That had really a special flavor. It had really a special flavor to a point that at the same time, I was offered a chair position. And then I was called and I was told that we're going to be the next editors. And I want to mention something about editors with plural. So I turned down the chair job, and I preferred to be the editor of the journal. And what I wanted to say also, when you start on that road, you got to find the partner, right? And Bruce Perler from Hopkins and I were friends for many, many years. And we clicked. So we did the Journal of Vascular Surgery together as co-editors. I was the editor-in-chief, he was the senior editor. And then we did 2 editions of Rutherford together, and now we're doing a 3rd edition of Rutherford together. And we complement each other. Bruce is extremely smart, extremely eloquent, and always when you want to succeed in life, find people who are better than you. And Bruce is definitely ahead of me. But that partnership has been there for years. So I believe that's extremely important. So when you want to do something professionally, find the right people that you can do it with.
That's great. And thanks for mentioning kind of the fact that the journal meant so much to you. And so then about, I want to say about 12 years ago, you became the chair of surgery at George Washington University. That experience, what have you learned from that experience, and what have been the highlights of the experience as a chair of a Department of Surgery and academic organization?
Yeah, it's very interesting is in that I thought I would retire from the VA. I was really doing fine. I was that year, 2010, when I left, I was the editor of the journal, and I was serving on the vascular surgery board of the American Board of Surgery. My life was in perfect balance. But this opportunity came about. And I'm not going to go into detail because a lot of good friends and my wife actually pushed me to do it. And actually, at the time, it was 2 years after I started my tenure as editor of the journal, so I got comfortable with that. So I decided actually to go for it, and I was selected to be the chair. And that was also another very important opportunity that I took advantage of. It somewhat came to me because I was on the faculty at GW being at the VA, but I was not in GW proper. And it was time for me after 24 years in the VA actually to build something else. As you know, in the VA, you build up to a certain level, but then it's a budget and all that kind of stuff. So I felt I can build here. And actually, we did a lot of building since then. So this is what I learned, okay? People, when they come and ask me about taking a new job, especially if it's in a place that you don't know much about. Now, I knew stuff about GW because I was on the faculty. I knew the faculty, I knew the department, so it was easier. But people go to a new position of leadership and they have a lot of ideas. And I believe that the mistake usually by doing things too quickly, too fast, with no consideration to the culture and the dynamics that exist in that place. I do believe that in any leadership position, the most important parts are when you start and when you wind down. In the middle, it becomes a place that you're comfortable with. You don't want to start on the wrong foot. And what happens is people go, try to make changes very quickly, and they rub people the wrong way, and then things just don't go their way. Now sometimes you go to a place and then you need to do something because there is really an issue that's clear to everyone, and you need to make changes in that issue. But I'm not talking about that, right? It's so what I tell people when they ask me that question, I will say spend the first 6 months just studying the place, and not just studying, where this thing is and that thing is. Study the people in that place. Who are the people that really doing the work? Who are the people that are trusted? Who are the people that can help you on that journey? That's number one. Number two, don't issue edict. People don't take that lightly. You gotta do it with everyone else, especially with big decision. Talk with a lot of people. Talk with a lot of people, and talk with them and get their opinion. It doesn't matter that at the end you're gonna do exactly what everyone tells you. It's your decision at the end, but then you'll be able to make a very educated decision. The mistake I believe that some people do is they talk with the people above them. They don't talk with the people below them. But let me tell you, you become successful based on the people who you are leading. Because if they're happy and they're satisfied and they feel that they're being engaged in the decisions, they're gonna do a great job, and you will take the credit for that because you are the leader of the group. So that, I believe, is extremely important. Now, on the other end of it, I really believe that there is a responsibility on those people as well to reciprocate. And they need to be positive, especially young people. They need to be positive. They need to be loyal to the organization and helping the department and the organization to move forward. And most importantly, stay away from office politics. It just does not take you anywhere. If you have some time that you can use, not being in the OR or in the clinic or teaching, taking care of patients, you know what? Sit down and think, where do you want to see yourself 5, 10 years down the line? Start doing a study. If you have an abstract, get it done. Don't sit there and spend your time talking about things that really not going to take you anywhere. So I think is a mutual relationship. And when a leader comes and start engaging the faculty, then I believe that stuff will happen. And again, no one on that totem pole is too small not to engage.
That's a great point. And as you think about your leadership journey, what would be a piece of advice that was just amazing that you're like, yeah, that was the best piece of advice? Or was there a piece of advice that people gave you that was just completely, as you think about it, it was a bad piece of advice?
It's very interesting. So the late Dave Richardson,
Mm.
I got to know him around 2007. And the reason I got to know him is because he, GW, while they're starting to recruit chair, they asked him, Barbara Bass, and myself to be an external committee to look at the department in terms of recruiting a chair. And at the time, as I said, I was looking at a different job and I was being offered the position and stuff like that. And I was talking about that, I think, in one of our downtime. We came here for 2 days to do the review, a meeting with a lot of people. And I told Dave Richardson, and he had written a lot of papers about to be a chair. And I told him that, and he said, how old are you? And I told him, and he said, you know what? The average tenure for a chair is 7 years. And he said to me, so always time it. I said, okay, well, that's a great advice. About 3 years later, I see him here at the college in the Washington office. And I say to him, you're not going to believe, Dave, I took the job at GW, the one that we actually went and did the review for. And he said, how old are you? I told him, I said, you're going to be fine. so, so, however, though, I've been here for 13 years. So
Yes.
that 7 years didn't work out as he mentioned to me. So what I'm trying to say by that is you got to look at so many things when you
Yes.
take a position as a chair. But anyways.
Thank you for that. And I just want to make sure that question in the chat box from Dr. Legerfo. Tony, both you and your wife are very busy, plus you have children and grandchildren. How do you prioritize and maintain a balance of life?
Oh my gosh. Frank, did you have to ask me that difficult question? And thank you for all the years, Frank. And we talk about mentorship and mentors. So let me just make this
Please,
point.
please.
Now, Frank Legerfo is a real mentor. I went to do my fellowship with him, and then I used to get calls from him after I came to Washington. He would say, there's this job happening. This will be a good one for you. If you're interested in it, let's talk about it. And he was like this throughout my professional career. I basically finished my fellowship with him in 1984. So almost 40 years, and he continued to look after me. And he continues to, even at this stage of my career. So thank you, Frank, for doing that. I have to say, Mary, my wife, was the reason I was able to do what I've done. And I say this all the time. As I said, she is a pathologist, and she chose also the academic route. She currently serves as the chair of pathology at Georgetown. So we are extremely blessed. And to be in the United States of America, and I'm chair of surgery at George Washington in the nation's capital. She is the chair of surgery, chair of pathology at Georgetown, also in the nation's capital. So You know, you asked me why you went to the VA and volunteered. I mean, that's
There you
the
go.
reason.
There you go.
And Mary, when we started raising, when we started having children, she actually dedicated herself to that. And she has an unbelievable ability for time management. I mean, unbelievable. She can predict anything she is going to do to the second almost. And she actually put on hold her academic career. And she just was clinically active and took care of children. And we had help at home and all that kind of stuff. As the children started, uh, when like 5, 6 years later, start going to kindergarten and others, little by little, she started ramping up her academic career and resumed her scholarship, writing papers, and she is a cytopathologist in training, and she became the president of the 2 national cytopathology societies.
Wow.
So I could tell you that if it were not for Mary, it would have been very, very difficult for me to do what I've done all these years. And it's very important because she is an academic medicine. She understands what it takes. She understands what it means to go into the meetings. She understands what it takes to sitting at night and writing a paper or working on a book, because she did that herself. So this partnership, and I really call it partnership, it's been, I believe, beneficial to both of us, but definitely it was much more beneficial to me. So, so I just thank you for that question, Frank. Actually, that's allowed me to say something about my wife.
That's great. That's great. It's obviously all of this tempts me as I see some of my former colleagues from Georgetown in the attendees. Is obviously the question is, when you were at the VA, who were the better residents, the Georgetown or the? No, I'm not going to ask that.
Well, I'm not going to answer it if you ask it. No, actually, let me say this. I was asked once in a different kind of setup about that I was faculty member of both Georgetown and GW when I was at the VA. And they asked me whether there's any connection. I said, no, Georgetown GW, 2 independent organizations. However, though, we are in the city of Washington on the faculty level, we actually interact quite a bit and we're friends and we know each other. But I also said on the resident level, because they both rotate at GW, at the VA, there became some kind of friendship. And actually, we do have residents from GW and Georgetown that got married to each other. So that was a huge success of that relationship. But I believe that really both residents have done a superb job when I was at the VA. And even now, I would say that both residents, even I'm chair at GW, I would still say that both residents, GW and Georgetown, are excellent.
Excellent.
And thank you for being on this, being from Georgetown, being on this.
So I want to make sure that I ask a couple of questions from the audience. Dr. Wright asks, Tony, thank you for your insights and leadership. Have you kept operating throughout your chairmanship? How did you manage that time? And thanks for always caring for our U.S. veterans.
Well, thank you so much for that question. And I obviously I did continue to operate actively, but then few years ago, I assumed another position in my organization. I became the president and chair of the board of our physician group. And I have to say, doing that and the department put a huge dent on my clinical activity. I have done that. I'm not the president and chair of the board anymore, but then I transitioned for additional few years to be the chief physician executive of our physician group, okay, which I ended that tenure earlier in the mid of 2023. I still active in talking about cases, discussing cases, the vascular conference, working with the junior faculty members. But I dedicate most of my time now for faculty development and taking care of the department. We added a lot of, we added transplant, we added level 1 trauma, we added revamped vascular surgery. I mean, there's a lot of things that I did in the department and expanded that department to a point that it became like 3 times the size, or 2.5 to 3 times the size. So when I took it over. So that's basically how I spend my time now. Towards the end, you know, I'm not saying I'm ending my career anytime soon, but you know how
But
it
that's
is a transition.
excellent. I don't want to, I want to make sure before time is up that we talk about your work with the American College of Surgeons and Board of Regents, and you were the president of the Board of Regents in, I believe, 2021. Tell us a little bit about that experience and what that has meant to you, and some of the work that you did with the strategic analysis and so on.
You know, being elected to the Board of Regents, despite the fact I was president of Society for Vascular Surgery, but those are my colleagues. That's my specialty, right? I have worked in the college since I was in the chapter, president of the chapter. I merged Washington Academy of Surgery and the chapter together. I've done all that work. I served on the Board of Governors. I chaired committees on the Board of Governors. But when I was elected to the Board of Regents, that had a completely different flavor. And the reason being is because of multiple reasons, actually. But the main reason is I'm now moved out of the vascular surgery shell and expanded my horizon. And what an expansion it has been, because I got to know people outside my specialty that I would have never met and never become friends with. And actually, I treasure that the most. In addition to that, I don't believe people realize how dedicated and how much time and effort the 24 members, including the president of the Board of Regents, put into it, and how loyal and how they think about the practice of surgery for all surgeons, and the amount of time that we work on that and we talk about it. It is really amazing. I never appreciated that before becoming a regent. And I enjoyed that time. We worked hard, no question about it, and we work hard. But it's so extremely enjoyable because you have these 23, 24 people of like mind, and we all towards one goal. And the goal is to make the practice of surgery better for the patient and for our members. And that's the goal, to serve everyone with skill and trust. And that's exactly the motto that the board has all the time. Now, all are active on the board. So we belong to committees, and then we chair committees and stuff like that. Now, I was really humbled by being elected by my fellow regent as the chair of the board 2 years ago. And when I was told that I was nominated, we want you to write a personal statement. I actually, instead of writing about myself, I actually wrote about what I would do. And what I noticed in the previous, like 6 years I was on the board, that we hadn't engaged in strategic planning. And I said to myself, if I have the opportunity, this is something I would do. So actually, in my personal statement, I wrote that I would like to do not strategic planning, but strategic analysis of the divisions that report to the board of regents. Okay. At the same time, uh, Dr. Turner was selected to be the executive director, and then obviously we added the term CEO to it. And I started my year as chair of the board, and she started as the executive director exactly on the same day. So we formed this relationship and friendship, and she liked the idea of doing the strategic analysis. And she actually was extremely helpful to me in doing it. And we did first quality, and then we did education, and then we did trauma, and then and we didn't finish doing all of them during my tenure, but I was so glad that after I stepped down from being the chair, it continued. And the premise for that strategic planning is that a committee that work in that division, you close your eyes and you think where surgery is going 3 to 5 years from now. And then you plan and see how you're gonna move with that division to be ahead of the curve rather than behind the curve. And came up with recommendations. So each division came up with between 5 to 7 recommendations. And these recommendations now formed the NIDAS to actually continue with the work in the division. And I believe, obviously it's not for me to say, but I believe that that was a useful process. I was happy that I was able to do it because this was something I really wanted to do.
That's great. That's
And
great.
in addition to that, I'm sorry, in addition
No,
to that,
please.
in addition to that, I really, one of the things that vascular surgery was struggling with is how to optimize quality. So when I became a regent, obviously I started appreciating the work that the college does in quality. It's really massive.
Mhm.
So for many, many years before, myself and a group of vascular surgeons wanted to put actually what we called at the time a certification program for vascular centers. So as chair of the board, as a regent, I approached at the time the college, I approached the Society for Vascular Surgery and said, we have all these issues in vascular surgery, what's happening on the inpatient and outpatient. We ought to use the experience at the college to put together a vascular verification program. And we did. We started just before COVID. COVID delayed things, but we continued to work. And now, in March of 2023, we launched the inpatient program. And
Excellent.
in September of 2023, we launched the outpatient program. And we already reviewed 8 sites. And actually, I believe that that's going to be huge for the specialty of vascular surgery. Without the college, we spent over 15, 20 years and we couldn't come up with one because it's very difficult. But the college has the infrastructure that allowed us to do it.
Great, great. And I just want to ask you a little bit also about your experience with the Academy of Master Surgeon
Of course.
Educators. You've been on the steering committee and what that has meant for you and what you see as the future.
I believe the concept of the academy is a fabulous concept. And this is a concept that would appreciate people on different level in education of other surgeons. And I think this was attributed to Zollinger, but surgeons who do not educate the next generation are committing malpractice. And the academy is an organization that appreciate education of surgeons at all levels. And so I became one of the inaugural members. And And actually, the academy was great, especially during COVID. Academy was just formed. In early 2020, COVID started. So Dr. Britt and Dr. Sachdeva brought together a group of surgeons and then divided them into 3 subcommittees. And those surgeons just got into to work on how to continue the education of trainees during COVID and set the stage of what to come in the academy. I was I was not on the steering committee when the academy was formed, but I was asked to join after that. And what a group of people on the steering committee, also extremely dedicated. They think only about how to make surgical education in the United States better. And I have to say, I'm very proud to be a Academy member and especially proud to be a member of the steering committee. It's a great thing, really, that the college has done.
Excellent, excellent. I want to finish with a question from Dr. Joshi that I may just change the question just a little bit. It says, when you become a leader or chief, you sometimes feel that you need to get 100% operative income, no complications, which is practically impossible. How do you overcome that? And I want to put it in context of your thoughts about resilience and your thoughts about adversity. And I think it goes to this also within our surgical practice.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that question. It took me actually a few years to get where I felt I needed to be. I think surgeons in nature are perfectionists.
Mm.
I believe this is why I really loved surgery, because you're always seeking perfection. You're not going to reach it. We're never going to reach it. I don't believe anyone can reach perfection when you're dealing with the pathophysiology of another human being. But at least we are always trying to get there. Initially, when you become a surgeon, you worry about everything. I think that's good. I think a surgeon that does not worry about their results and their operations, I don't think that those surgeons are doing it right. Let me put it this way. All right. So it is always extremely important to do so. In the beginning, you worry about everything, and you gotta train yourself to be able to go beyond the obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
And to do so, you gotta put a goal for yourself, and you always march towards that goal, and you convince yourself that everything that's happened is a sideshow. You take care of it. When it happens, it's gonna go away, but you're gonna keep on marching toward that goal. And I think when you do that, you get to a point where you are able to go through obstacles to get where you need to be.
Thank you so much, Tony. I really appreciate all the wisdom. I appreciate you sharing so much of yourself with us tonight and with so many people who are among the attendees. So I will hand it over to Dr. Sachdeva, but thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure. Dr. Sachdeva.
Thank you, Mo, for an excellent interview. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'd like to add my thanks as well to you, Tony, for a very, very enlightening presentation, your remarks. And what came through for me was your passion and your authenticity. Clearly, as a leader, you have to be both, and you have to have your feet on the ground and be very practical. And what you've shared with us this evening are really some practical tips of how to succeed in academic surgery, how to be a great leader of your team, how to switch career directions and yet succeed, and how to really leverage the wisdom of the experts who work with you and are really close to you. And all those are wonderful tips for everyone on this call. I also want to point out that your acknowledging your time at the VA was very special. And in fact, the VA shaped my career as well in my early years and hit a special chord with me. So thank you, Tony, for taking the time and sharing all this wisdom and the pearls with us. Thank you, Mo, for a great job as moderator, as you always do. I'd like to extend my thanks to the two core staff of our division who support the Academy, Kate Kemick and Caroline Roth, who took care of all the arrangements. And thank you all to the participants. We've had a great attendance. Thank you for staying through the evening. And I'm sure there'll be many more people who will watch this recording as they always do after these sessions. And thank you all for being here and have a great night. And we appreciate all your contributions, Dr. Sidawy. Thank you.
Thank you.